I never expected them to change the way Japan works in such a massive way. So today we are reacting to the Japan video the Hearts of Iron 4 devs have released, showing off the big changes. Let's go.
Welcome to the second video on the features of the upcoming expansion to Hearts of Iron 4. No compromise, no surrender. I'm Peter Nicholson, Game Director of Hearts of Iron 4, and today we'll discuss the changes coming for Japan in No Compromise, No Surrender. Both the historical and ahistorical paths that you can take.
Okay, there was a new building there I just spotted. Can you see that? That's not on the map at the moment. Some kind of temple by the looks of things.
Something that will stand out immediately to seasoned Hearts of Iron 4 players is that Japan now starts out as a non-aligned country.
Is it my imagination or is the microphone quality kind of bad?
In 1936, Japan was actually a democratic country with free elections. We considered having them start as such, but for gameplay reasons chose non-aligned. As they progress through the historical paths of the new focus tree, Japan will eventually turn fascist.
I kind of like this in a way. I mean, the ideologies in the game should be allies leaning, Comintern leaning, Axis leaning, and then non-aligned, shouldn't it? That's kind of the way the ideologies do work, because they're not really, they don't fit nicely into the categories of fascist, democratic, and communist. Some of them are just kind of complete outliers, you know? It would make more sense that we abandon those labels of democratic, fascist, and whatnot. National spirit.
Next, we've made significant changes to the national spirit.
Yeah, the audio quality is bad, actually. I don't know what happened there.
Our goal with these spirits is to reflect Japan's approach to warfare. For example, in the Imperial Army spirit, we see Japan's armored forces lagging behind their Western counterparts. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Navy, we model Kantai-Kessen, the decisive battle, which was Japan's preferred method of gaining naval superiority. This approach also led to overloaded ships, which, while very good with launching torpedoes, were also prone to accidents and struggled to detect US submarines. Another thing we've modeled here is the political infighting that plagued Japan at the time. There's an intense rivalry between the Army and Navy and their individual respective air forces. But perhaps most importantly is the Imperial influence spirit, which grants you bonuses or malices from the four major factions within Japan trying to get the Emperor's attention: the Army, the Navy, the civilian government, and the industrial conglomerates known as Zaibatsus. Found inside the focus tree are the four major factions.
Okay, this reeks of Inner Circle. This is basically the Inner Circle mechanic for Japan.
For control over Japan's future. Working with these factions can be of great assistance to your ambitions, but you'll need to pick which faction to work with and when to achieve it. Factions can be at 4 different levels of influence, ranging from subdued to dominating. Each stage of influence will give you different modifiers and is also represented in the frame around each faction's icon.
Yeah, I had a bit of an issue with that. I feel like it's not really clear. I mean, now I look at it, I can see that's platinum, bronze, silver, bamboo. You're in the Wood League.
There can only be 2 factions which are concurrently influential. Due to the clash between the Army and the Navy, their factions will affect the other.
The panning shots.
If both are on the same level of influence, you'll see production cost malices from both factions. While if one faction is higher, they will have production cost bonuses towards their area.
5% for aircraft and warships. I mean, it's pretty good if you are trying to build a navy from the ground up, but 5% is so low.
While the other faction receives even more severe malices.
Yeah, so the issue with the Navy and the Army is they're always fighting on one another, so you can't really have both of them being influential. They're kind of flying off each other.
The influence level of the factions will not only determine the bonuses you receive, but may also determine which focuses you can take, and the bonuses received.
I'm overall not for this kind of stuff because it railroads the focus tree. It becomes the worst focus tree in Hearts of Iron 4. I'm sorry, Dev, though, who designed it, but I'm going to have to call it out. It's the Switzerland focus tree. It's not very good. And the reason why is incredibly railroaded. If you played it, tried to understand it, and been successful with it, you'll completely agree with me. Because at the moment, every single focus you go down has some kind of restriction limit, and everything is railroaded. Plus, you can't design your army templates. Plus, you're limited of what advisors you can select based on the way your nation works. They've tried to create a brand new mechanic and respected them. They've overhauled it. It is a new thing. It is unique. But my God, I think it's bad in every single way. And I kind of get nervous when I see a restriction for that apply to Japan's focus tree. I personally feel like it shouldn't be railroaded. The player should be able to select it, but there should be a circumstance where if you pick it and you go all the way with it, there's a big penalty such as war support or stability malice. You basically, so here's an example, you're selecting a Navy national focus when the Army's in full control and fully influential. In that circumstance, you'll lose 5% or 10% stability for that as an extra malice on top of that as well. Plus, it might switch the influence of the factions as well. I don't like the idea that it's completely locked and railroaded and you can't progress down it. It's one of the worst feelings in Hoi 4 when you get to a focus and you cannot progress down it because it's like denied because of these set requirements that you've not met.
From those focuses. You can affect the level of influence by completing focuses or spending political power to endorse or suppress a faction from within the Imperial influence window.
There's going to be some good opportunities here to spend political power early in the game and kind of modify these mechanics in a way to get a head start. Because the way it usually works is you start off by influencing the army to win in China, then to win in the Pacific against the USA and the UK, you want the naval faction one. So you kind of play a bit of both. It looks like the naval faction, though, reduces the cost of ships, which is not very useful because, once again, reducing the cost of ships is something you do to build the Navy, not when you've already got the Navy. So it makes me wonder how influential and impactful that's actually going to be.
Factions may also send you demands, which, if completed, will grant those factions additional influence, or if failed, will reduce it.
So you've got national focuses that are adjusting the balance of power. Then you've got the ability to submit political power. Then you've also got missions on top of that to influence it as well as... Okay. There's a lot of like mechanics and turning parts with this focus tree. It's hard to tell if it'll all come together and work really well, or it's one of those things you kind of ignore and just progress to your goal and kind of ignore it, which annoys me in a way because I like every single impactful thing you can do to make an actual impact to the game itself and not just be this kind of like rolling mechanic in the back end, if you know what I mean.
Use the factions to your advantage in shaping your nation. Perhaps
small
you'll
spinny
find
camera.
Saibatsus to be of use.
Sorry, guys, sorry.
The focus tree for Japan has been massively overhauled. In the industrial branch, you can choose to focus on your colonial possessions and subjects, or you can choose to focus instead on the home front. The Ministry of Colonial Affairs sub-branch is all about building up your puppet Manchukuo and your colonies throughout the Pacific with civilian and military factories, dams, infrastructure, and resource prospecting, all the while helping your own economy. The final focus in the industrial tree will replace your early industrialization efforts, Spirit.
Oh, this reeks of Gotterdammerung and the German focus tree. This is autarky. Not even being shy about it too. This is the one for one, the autarky mechanic. Hey, listen, if it's not broke, don't fix it, okay? Just frustrates me a little bit that I feel like we're seeing Germany focus tree version 2.
With the economic miracle. But achieving it will require a significant investment into...
If they wanted to make this differently, what they could do is give outrageously big bonuses like ×4 them, but only last for 1 year maybe. So the miracle happens, but it's not permanent. It can be erased off over time, you know?
Meeting requirements. Building up your industry is important to support your war machine. Both the Japanese Army and Navy focus on striking hard and fast to overwhelm their enemies. Once you've finished the Imperial Defense Plan, you'll get temporary national spirits whenever you declare a war in a neighboring country or a country with capital ship.
I like this. These temporary bonuses that are really good. I like this a lot.
As previously mentioned, the Japanese tanks were lagging behind their Western counterparts. But in your playthrough, it doesn't have to be that way.
That's good.
Going down the army branch, you can choose to rely on infantry offensives, or you can reform the army, incorporating more and better tanks into your armed forces. Depending on how you prefer to play and how the war is going, you can also choose to pivot towards defensive measures, or you could strengthen the supply lines and go on the...
Ooh, 20% efficiency? That feels really high. I think that increases the capacity per supply depot, or it might be capacity per province. Could be
The
either.
new Air Force branch of the focus tree will finally let Japan players develop the Zero-Sen fighter aircraft. And by supporting aluminium alloy production, you can make them even better. Modern bombers allows you to take advantage of your almost certain...
So one of the issues with Japan is you have very low aluminium, so you tend to run into issues producing a large amount of planes. So you kind of have to modify your strategy to base around that. It's interesting to see with these new mechanics how that's going to change.
aerial superiority in the Pacific Theater. And by completing Improve the Type 91 aerial torpedo, you'll be able to more effectively attack ports. That torpedo was designed for attacking shallow harbors. Towards the end of this branch, you'll be able to move the air forces out of the Army and Navy and unify them.
Oh! I like the idea of that. Like the idea that finally the conflict between Army and Navy branches come together in some point. But I feel like it should feel rewarding to the player. Like you don't just complete a focus in 70 days. You need to require some conditions that are met to be able to successfully do it. Maybe it should require a longer time to unify the two. I suppose in all fairness, that would end the rivalry completely, wouldn't it? Which kind of would erase the existing mechanics. I don't know, there's lots of what's, ifs, and maybes there.
In the naval branch, you'll decide how your naval game is going to play
Look at that icon. Look at that. Whoa! Feels like Blastoise.
out. Focusing on aircraft carriers, or going for the battleship initiative, or take a balanced naval approach.
Why not both?
For all of the political branches of Japan's focus tree, you start with the Kodoha, or Imperial Way political faction, preparing for their coup d'etat. Once the coup starts through a series of events, the outcome you choose affects which path you're going down. This
reminds me a little bit of the abdication of the king for the UK.
Automatically complete the first choice of
the choices you make there will affect your ideology moving forward.
3 mutually exclusive focuses, either the historical, Kodoha, or anti-military paths, the latter of which will later allow you to choose between democracy or communism.
Wow, what a decision, guys. Comment below, democracy or communism?
The historical path shares its foreign policy branch with the Kodoha path, and is divided into 3 sub-branches: Northern Expansion, Southern Expansion, and Western and Chinese Affairs. Expanding north or south is not a mutually exclusive choice, but instead have certain time gates, or the naval and army factions respectively holding a certain amount of influence within them. Okay. Another change for Japan is that now, instead of always having full control of when or even if you invade China, you may have to start a war whether you like it or not. The Kwantung Army is always looking to expand their sphere of influence. This means that though you can choose to delay or start it early, historical Japan cannot avoid an oncoming conflict with China.
Oh, I feel like this is a path that Hoifa has gone down over time, hasn't it? A lot of these big decisions, there was always an opt-out somehow. Like, remember in the old version of the Spanish Civil War, there was a combination of events and buttons you could press to actually stop the Civil War completely. I don't know if you guys can remember, that was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, before they introduced the focus tree for Spain. So now, things are moving forward where there is no opt-out option, and the similar applies to Japan attacking China or whatnot. You are forced into it at some point, but you have control over when it happens. I kind of like this because it's just different, you know? Of course, I'm always against railroading mechanics, like players to have freedom, but in this circumstance, because you have some level of control, but you're not completely denied, I do like it. And it's different.
In the branch which deals with the internal politics of Japan,
Dave likes change.
And you'll find a country going through a tumultuous period. Ministers within the country are at constant odds with each other, as some try to empower the military while others stand against them. As the player, you can choose to support the civilian cabinet or follow history and favor the military. This will eventually lead you to your choice of factions, which can later down the line be reformed into the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere. At the end of the historical path, you will find yourself adopting fascism as the ruling ideology and a choice of who should lead the nation: Tojo,
Eternal Kingdom,
Yamamoto, or the Emperor Showa himself.
Ah, so that's how you do the monarch path. It has to start with fascism. Okay.
If, however, you wanted a different flavor of fascism or wanted to stay non-aligned, you could side with the Kodoha and go down the path of the Imperial Way.
Capitalism.
You'll have access to the same foreign policy branches as the historical path does, but focuses less on puppets and more on direct control over land. For example, like the annexation of Manchuria. The Kodoha will also be able to rein in...
Integrate the Manchurian states. Is that what that said? Wow. Okay, I like that. I like that too.
Able to rein in the Kwantung Army and end their autonomy, which will allow for more flexibility with the timing of the invasion of China. The path ultimately culminates in the propagandization of the Japanese mythological founding tales and the rapid indoctrination for a final war which will engulf the globe.
Oof. Big Japan, big cream, big borders.
If you seek instead to strengthen the Japanese democracy,
okay, we'll skip
you
this.
must stand in opposition to the military. By doing so, you will immediately flip from non-aligned to democratic. But you better look out, because the military is preparing another coup. You'll seek the support...
Oh, God. I have to say, this is one of the most annoying mechanics. You need a civil war to get away from fascism. Then you need a civil war to change ideology. Like, oh, not two. Not two.
...of various groups from within the country as conflict looms on the horizon. Once you revoke the peace preservation law, a civil war will break out. After the militarists have been dealt with, you can hold the first free and open election since the late Taisho era.
For a second there, I thought that was the same guy twice. Oh, he's got a slightly different name. Okay, it's a different guy. Okay. Would you like to choose between the general or the king? In the heart, it's a joke. It's the same person.
The outcome will shape how the economy and recovery process evolves, as well as who may be selected as prime minister the next time the opportunity comes around. Once democracy is properly entrenched...
Wow, 5 prime ministers? That is actually really cool. Once again, I just like it because it's different.
It's time to build up the nation.
Usually those ones are selected by like an event with a decision. No, you don't usually pick them as a focus.
And get it out of the economic slump it has been in now for some time. The democratic path is the strongest part of the focus tree when it comes to expanding the industry and research capabilities of Japan. You also have...
Remember, always the big issue with democratic paths is where do you go once you've turned democratic, you know? If you're going to side with the allies, that's cool and everything, but then you've kind of like, you're dogpiling the Axis and the Comintern, aren't you? I feel like I like the way it used to work in the past, that when you change ideology, particularly in Europe, it affects the ideology of nations in Europe. Like, for instance, if you go down the line as Germany, France goes communist, for instance. I wonder if they might change this for China, maybe? Maybe, I'd hope so.
The opportunity to forge alliances with friends both old and new, and expand your borders with the ultimate goal of spreading democracy.
Spread democracy, based. Bring them freedom.
However, holding an election is not your only option after dealing with the military coup. If the socialist Iso Abe is put in control of the Democratic Party when you...
Okay, if the other paths were alt history, this is the most alt history. This is the extreme of the extremes, this, isn't it? Because I'm understanding there wasn't really a big support for communism in Japan, right?
You first oppose
Come on,
the
history
military,
nerds, tell me.
You can choose to grow the communist support in Japan, which will add a third side to the civil war. This is a challenging position to play from, but a skilled player will be able to win the war for the communists. Once the war has been won, the time comes to pick which flavor of communism Japan will strive towards. The lecture group is more closely aligned with the ideas...
Just FYI, I'm not against civil wars if it is changing ideology, particularly in this circumstance when communism isn't really influential inside of Japan. So a civil war feels very relevant to be needed to change ideology in that circumstance. However, I just think it's a bit frustrating, really, that, like, I don't know, so a lot of ideology flips require civil wars, basically.
...of Lenin and Stalin, and will pursue...
Here's an alternative. Have a coup. It changes your ideology immediately, but it sets your stability to 0%, and then it can claw it back over weeks and weeks and weeks. So this kind of concept of, like, you did it, it was successful, but it was the most unpopular coup in existence, you know what I mean? And therefore, it requires you to build confidence over time. Just an alternative to a civil war, that's all.
A more centralized approach. Building up the idea of a one-party state which will spread the communist...
Okay, I did read a few comments about this on the forums, and apparently people didn't like this. The Pacific Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Soviet. Interesting. It's a hard one, this one, isn't it? Because you've gone down such a fantastical alt history path now. It's kind of... it's difficult to believe these mechanics, if you catch my drift.
Ideas to the rest of Asia by force. Meanwhile, the Labour-Farmer faction focuses more on bringing the various socialist factions into the government and focusing on rural reconstruction and development. Both of these paths share a sub-branch relating to restructuring of Japanese society in regards to the monarchy, the oligarchs, and the militarists. This will all culminate in a strong industrial focus. Neither
unlocks, what was that? Unlocks decisions to construct one civilian factory in starting core states with level 4 or higher infrastructure. This is a thing, if I've noticed, the Raj can do this. I just like it because it's so different again. Interesting. Okay.
Neither of these Japanese communist factions were on good terms with the Soviet Union at the time, and so both wished to stand against their influence, albeit through different methods. The lecture group will try and unify East Asia under one banner, attempting to become a Soviet Union that can stand up against not only the USSR to its west and north, but the Commonwealth and the USA to its south and east.
Soviet Union too.
The Labour-Farmer faction, however, will attempt to establish puppet government throughout the Comintern, adopting a similar playstyle to that of the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, using slightly more subversive tactics in an attempt to liberate Asia from colonialism and imperialism.
Release the colonies.
All of this, along with new 3D models, equipment, advisors, generals, and admirals, will be coming to Hearts of Iron 4.
As you probably know, guys, I never get quite as excited for new focus trees as I do for like new game mechanics. So the cold change and the doctrine change in Hearts of Iron 4, I'm mad excited for. I want to load up as Germany and just try out these new mechanics and see how they play out. However, with the Japan focus tree, the historical path seems very sexy and exciting. The influential mechanics seem kind of cool if they work the way I think they should. Like they should feel like they're conflicting mechanics and they should be very visual to the player. I like the historical path for Japan. It seems kind of cool, like the way the different factions, influential, work with each other. As long as it's very visual to the player and makes a worthwhile impact on the focus tree, I kind of like if those work too. Once again, it's all about visual feedback to the player and letting them know that they're in control and they have the ability to sway different game mechanics. I'm not too sure, though, about the all history paths. Once again, I'm not a big fan of like Civil War after Civil War. I like the player to have an option to do something different, like, for instance, a coup. That's one I think the most fun mechanics to USSR is the ability to have a coup to get rid of Stalin. It's a very rare event. It's hard to pull off. You have to click a lot of the focuses. But I like the fact that it's a natural thing. It just makes the game a little bit differently, not having to be forced into these never-ending Civil War-style mechanics. Then again, Civil Wars in Japan is probably not going to be that difficult, because the fact it's a very small nation, where Russia is probably one of the worst Civil War scenarios because it's so unbelievably massive. You know what else is massive? You, for subscribing, liking this video, and comment below. That way, YouTube will provide you with more of this kind of content. Guys, if you like this kind of content, I will see you next time on the next video. Bye-bye.